Well, hey y'all, Chris Sophia, Humble Blades, handmade knife maker, small town Taylor, Texas. Come inside, check out my knife making shop. I kind of have this whole place set up. It's a sweet old garage. This is my kiln. This is where I do all my heat treating. I use primarily stainless steels, so that's a whole other process, but basically, rather than that dramatic dunk and quench in the oil, you do this thing with plates and pressure and air, pulling out the temperature accordingly and cooking to recipe. So it gets up to temperatures of 2,500 degrees. Definitely need to go that high with a lot of the stainless steels. Toaster oven, Kydex press situation. The Kydex is really cool. It's a flat substrate, but at around 350, 400 degrees, it gets really wet like a leather, and you can press it in, and it'll take and retain the shape and form of whatever you're working with. So it's a great holster and deployment system, and I use it on a lot of my EDC type stuff. It's kind of the heart and soul, the bread and butter of the operation. I spend a lot of time finishing, sanding the steel, polishing handles and everything. You have a chance to make it look beautiful, and it takes a long time to do it. And over here I do a lot of sanding, polishing, just a whole lot of defiling, hand tool stuff. I have some things I'm working on. We're gonna get sanding this blade later. I was just kind of working on some rough spots and tapering the tang. It's a little process that I love to do. Here's the handles for that knife. So shake a little piece and sand, move, sand, move. Obviously, I have a nice big workbench, so I make it a fucking mess whenever I can. So I'm working on a glue up for a customer. It's a rehandle of a friend's knife. So I'll kind of play with some materials and glue some stuff up. This is an EDC I'm kind of working on. This is something for a customer. Some clamps. You got to measure the glue on a scale. Not a drug dealer. I wish. I'm too broke to be a drug dealer. The coffee cup, you drink a lot of coffee. This right here, I made this up. You just shake the shit out of the knives and it puts a really cool texture on it. Over here is my grinder. You can change the arms out on a lot of different things, a lot of different belts and rolls that the tool can sort of assume, with small wheel grinder attachment, other things, different wheel for hollow grinding. It's really cool, hollow grinding versus flat grinding and everything. Whole other story, but most of my stuff ends up being flat ground because I just kind of like it. It's really classic. But some drilling, bandsaw, more grinders, buffers, most dangerous thing in the shop. Just another mini drill press. It's kind of cool to have a couple different drill presses. I only use two sizes primarily. It's an 1/8 inch and a 1/4 inch. Because that way you can't fuck up. I fucked up a lot of different ways, and I'm really happy to say that I still have all my fingers, despite how embarrassing that story is, but that's a whole other time. And this is kind of a cool, stupid, but it's kind of a neat, it's like an old school, like craftsman thing. I didn't eat all these pickles, no matter what anybody's gonna tell you. I might have boofed a couple, but I didn't eat them all. But so come around here, and this half of the room, and I think it's pretty cool too. I like my Texas flag and my American flag, but this is where all the dust and stuff is happening. So it gets pretty dusty in here, especially this corner. I have a little cycle thing, a little air scrubber up there, but it does get pretty dusty, but it is what it is. I like to store my handle materials up in here. I think it's just a really fun way to invite a lot of the workflow and process into the environment. And, it saves space. It frees up a lot of the drawers in my tool chest, which are just end up being empty because there's no handle materials in them. But here is where I do a lot of my leather work, wet work, gluing and clamping. I do a lot of planning over there, but I like to get clean and everything over here. So then I just have clamps, a lot of stuff to, ma'am, you need an appointment. Ma'am. Lots of clamps, and they're all spread around because we had a busy day, and I'm a pretty messy person. But over here it's kind of cool. Just a whole bunch of random tools, drugs. I'm not a drug dealer. Pin stocks, leather scraps. There's always something that I can use. Some finished projects or near finished projects or a bunch of shit, that you just acquire. And then over here is a little more planning, This section, I like having the center island, obviously to keep the kiln free. A lot of moving parts away from it, but over here I just like to have the space to plan out. Working on a larger piece right now, so stock removal's the way for this one. We've kind of planned out our call list or our cut list, and now I'm going to go through and I'll just take the angle grinder, just wing them out as I go to the size and shape that I need. And so, I mean, between everything around here, obviously some staging areas done stuff, it really all just comes down to a couple stages of doing it, having a good spot, a nice environment to be feeling creative and having fun and challenging yourself. And the knife making process itself can be very quick or very long, drawn out. It all just depends on what you want to get out of it. But the basic overview is we're going to have to get a piece of steel. It's important to make sure that in your steel selection, it's something that can be hardened. Like mild steel from Home Depot can't do it. I know because I tried. But you're going to get a piece of steel, you're going to put some geometry into it. Geometry means the bevels or what comes to an angle, and you're going to want to harden that steel. You're going to want to get it to a really extreme heat temperature, and then you're going to want to cool it appropriate to the steel. Some steels are going to be dunked in oil, some, like I use stainless steels, there's a plate quenching process, which is kind of funky. Now, so after we've heat treated it, now we can do our final geometry. So there's a little bit more, it's a little steel, grinding, heat treat, grinding, handles gluing, sharpening, and boom, done. So the overall process, there's some bottlenecks where you can't really work on it when it's at 1400 degrees plus. After you grind it, you're going to achieve a proper geometry so you can apply an edge. That primary bevel is going to lead into the secondary bevel, also known as the edge, and that's going to be another angle where you're going to vertex or apex to a 0, and that's how you're going to be able to pop hair, cut paper. There's all sorts of sharpness tests. People use stone, some people have these intricate methods. I end up using a belt sander little situation with these really cool super high grit film back things. I get really great performance. I have a very weightless, less resistance moving and cutting thing through a paper towel that I like to see performance, and then monitoring any rips on burr because people can always, cutting paper's fun and shit, but it's not necessarily the best one. You're gonna do all these things to make sure you have the proper heat treat characteristics, edge performance. You can glue on a handle. We can do a paracord wrap. One of my favorite things to do is just glue a slab of leather just on the side. It's kind of tricky. Sometimes you fuck up, and the only way to know that you fucked up is when the glue dried, but it's just it goes on like that. And I'll cut it to the shape of the whole handle, and it's pretty cool. Now is a chance that before we're done, we're gonna do whatever that we need to do, and we're also most likely going to sharpen the knife, just because after you put a handle on it, it's kind of harder to sharpen. That's how some people choose to do it. I actually choose to do sharpening at the very, very end because I don't really run into this specific problem with my designs, probably because I just designed them to be sharpened at the end because I don't want to be running around with sharp knives. I cut myself enough all the time anyway, every day, even just opening a box earlier for a video, so it's just, I'm prone to accidents, so it's just a miracle that, nothing too serious has happened. And that's more or less it. You get an edge on it and you're good to go. What makes a good knife? Heat treat, and geometry. That's the most important thing. Is to cut one time is going to be the edge, and then to cut 2 times is going to be the geometry, and then to cut 3 times, meaning the longevity and the performance of it, is going to be the heat treat. So anything is going to be sharp and cut one time, and so now the edge is gone. But so nothing you can do, but you have a good geometry, that means that it's going to cut again, despite the fact that the edge has failed. The energy, the dynamic shape of everything is going to still purchase and slice through whatever you're going through, and that means your geometry is good. But now, ultimately, to do it again, now you've deformed it, so that's why I said now your heat treat for the 3rd cut. If your heat treat is good, you can keep cutting and using. Now, certain people doesn't necessarily mean if it's too high or too hard or too soft. I don't think either one is better. There's optimal ranges, but ultimately, if you have a knife that's too hard and the end user can't sharpen it, it's no good. And if you have a knife that's too soft, it needs to be sharpened all the time, or somebody sharpens it so frequently rather, and when you sharpen it, you're always fucking with the angle. So if you're changing the angle and tweaking it, someone who doesn't know what they're doing could very easily wear away a lot of the geometry and belly on the blade. So the heat treat's really, really, really important, but it's the edge, the geometry, the heat treat, I mean, they all matter, but as far as the handling process, that's fun. You can play with some bright colors and combinations like we do over here, or you can keep it really simple, really, laid back and easy. I choose to spend a lot of time finishing it because I'm making or what I consider, and if I'm not considered as, at least what I inspire to be heirloom quality knives and materials, stuff that's going to last for generations and to be handed down and to garner the same amount of esteem and love and care and discipline, etc., everything that goes into it and everything that fosters the creation of it. So I'm just going to start throwing sparks, cutting up these grinders, and getting after it, y'all.